Nandika is our Chief Growth Officer at CECP. She's worked with a lot of financial institutions in the past, and she's going to start us off with a first interview. Welcome, Nandika.
Thank you. All right, so warm welcome again, and thank you. Daryl referred to this slide. That's me. Okay, so Daryl talked about this slide a little bit in his opening remarks, but I just wanted to focus a little bit on why we think this is important. And this is based on research that we've done over the last few years. And there are, I think, primarily 6 reasons why we think companies need to be more forthcoming about their strategies for long-term value creation. First, it helps them demonstrate that they actually have an effective forward-looking business strategy. Second, it shows that the company can anticipate and capitalize on mega trends. It helps investors understand that sustainability issues and strategies are material to the business bottom line. It also enables the C-suite to reflect on the corporate ecosystem, including consideration of key stakeholders, employees, customers, consumers, supply chain, etc. It allows for an effective communication of key priorities that cultivate a long-term investor base. And as Daryl mentioned, the part of this whole exercise around the launching and the building of the CEO Investor Forum is to bring companies to patient capital, to long-term investors. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is setting the context for why the company needs to execute short-term actions in the effort to achieve its long-term objectives. And it's therefore fitting that we start this morning's session by having a conversation that will set the context for how companies can redefine their corporate strategy in a fast-paced, future-focused AI world. And with that, I'd like to welcome Brian Buchwald. He is the Global AI and Product Chair at Edelman. Brian, welcome. Round of applause for Brian. So thank you for joining us this morning. We have 10 minutes and a lot of ground to cover.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to start out by asking you to do the macro picture for us on what are the challenges and the opportunities that we see today from an AI perspective.
Yeah, that's a good question. And first, great to see everybody here. So in my role at Edelman, I'm in charge of our evolution as a company and how we're transforming ourselves, but also how we're working with our clients. And if I see certain patterns emerging in terms of challenges, the first one is quite simply a lack of a plan. There are many groups getting together and talking about AI. It's certainly something that investors want to see. It's something employees want to understand. It's something that executives want to see movement on. So oftentimes what we're seeing is investment in tools, in building large language models, without an understanding of why. So the first question I always ask when I get into a client is to understand really where they are, not where they tell me where they are, but actually in practice what we're seeing in terms of their usage of AI, how they're thinking about governance and compliance, how they understand the role of employee training, and how they really have defined the user benefit or the client benefit or the employee benefit or whatever it might be. The vast majority of AI implementations right now fail. The primary reason they fail is action before strategy. Sounds relatively simple and relatively obvious, but there is an imperative right now to action that we're seeing across Fortune 500 companies that's driving behavior and investment before a real understanding of long-term implications and opportunity.
So one of the things that has come up in a lot of the work that we've been doing with companies over the last couple of years is around employee upskilling and reskilling as AI becomes both designed and deployed within companies. So how can businesses best promote AI adoption among their teams?
Yeah, I don't know if folks here read a recent quote by Reid Hoffman, but Reid, who's a very well-known entrepreneur and investor, talked about the fact that AI will not replace our jobs, but people using AI will replace our jobs. And I think about that. So the first element is to work with employees and teams to recognize that their job is not a task or a series of tasks. It's goals and benefits that you're looking to create for a client or for a partner or whoever it might be. And through that context, you can start to look at AI as an agent to help automate or to help make easier many of the more mundane or simpler tasks that you have in front of you or employees have in front of them, so that they can put their time to creating greater strategic value, thinking about that user benefit, that client benefit. The reality is that in many of the teams that we work with, there could be anywhere between 50 to 90% efficiency using AI relative to just employee hours. And what that means is many people will likely lose their jobs. It's just, or they'll get reallocated. For those that will stay in the role, it's about having access to tools. It's about having an understanding of how to use the tools. But most importantly, it's understanding how to insinuate those tools into their workflows. So again, if we think about our jobs as creating client benefit, partner benefit, whatever it might be, if we think about the use cases that support those benefits, and then we dive into the workflows that support those use cases, what we do every day, AI really becomes about enabling those workflows to become more efficient so we can put our time to higher order value work. Once employees start to understand that and invest in it, we see big benefits. Last thing I'll say is AI is a relatively, it's an airy concept until you get your hands in the clay. So one of the other elements that we found to be really conducive to success is just getting teams at our clients or even at my own company, building custom GPTs, touching the tools, starting to get access, and then actually using them. Once that happens, you realize these are mostly non-technical capabilities, so you don't have to be an engineer. In fact, the engineers may have the most to lose in this new AI environment, and it's actually relatively simple to get started.
So you talked about AI tools and technologies, but so when you're thinking about them, what are the key factors you prioritize? And you did talk a little bit about anticipating how these tools will impact business innovation. But what do you think that's today and in the moment. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years? So one is, what are the tools and technologies, and what do you think is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so when I look at when we advise clients on which tools to use and why, again, I start with the user benefit, and then I back into the workflows so we understand exactly what they should be using and why. There are roughly 80,000 companies in the world right now with AI attached to their name or in their descriptions, and many new ones being created on a day-to-day basis. So we start with the use case and the workflows, and that allows us to identify the best possible tool to use. When we define that more broadly, we start with, is the tool enterprise ready? Do they have the right security? Do they have the right disclosures? Do they have the things that matter to enterprises, like are they signing up for certain privacy policies, et cetera, that make it possible, for instance, for us to put client data into a platform or to advise a client that they can put secure information. Once you understand that, it goes to those workflows I mentioned, and then it becomes an understanding of things like the product roadmap, right? So where are they today, but where are they going to be in 180 days, 365 days? My firm is tech agnostic. We represent and recommend different technologies for those different use cases based on what we think is best for clients. What is best today may be very different in 90 days. I was at an event about a month ago hosted by OpenAI. They brought their leadership team to New York. We were looking at OpenAI's product roadmap. That's obviously the company behind ChatGPT. They have 5x'd the power of ChatGPT just in the last 18 months. So it is 5 times more powerful today than it was. So if you think about the different companies investing in the space and the billions of dollars going into it, you're actually seeing the benefit. They described where ChatGPT is from an educational level as now the equivalent of a graduate student versus what was a high school student just a year ago. So in terms of its ability to kind of cognitively make decisions and assist us. Where I think this is getting us to is ultimately a collapse between what we call systems of insight and systems of action. So if you think about a lot of our IT investment, enterprise software investment, it's in systems that allow us to divine intelligence, right? To get to an aha moment, to understand client or employee trends, whatever it might be, and we invest in other systems that enable us to act, right, to drive client benefit, to reach out to a customer, to sign up a new partner, whatever it might be. What these platforms are now doing is really starting to integrate the two in ways in which they collapse the window and actually take a lot of human need or human judgment potentially out of the process. So last element, making sure that you do have a human in the loop, so somebody overseeing these processes, because the more we tend to automate, the more we hand off, the more we also need to make sure that we're not creating moments of potential hallucination or challenges in the future.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to the last question, which is around ethics and AI, right? I mean, I think there is a lot of concern, exactly as you just mentioned, is when we let these large learning machine tools take over and kind of lead the way versus the human being stepping in. So what are some of your thoughts around what does ethical practice look like around AI, and are you concerned, or is there regulatory issues that we think are going to be necessary to regulate AI use?
Yeah. So the first thing I say is AI should be no different than other aspects of your business in the sense of how you think about ethical disclosures, how you think about what employees can or shouldn't do. AI is essentially an agent of the enterprise. It's an agent of an employee. So if you think about them as an assistant, what would you want that assistant to be able to do? What would you want that assistant not to be able to do? I wouldn't look at AI necessarily any differently. So the operative word for me is always transparency. Transparency is the single most important element when we both bake AI into our work, but also when we talk to our clients about what they should be doing. If you think about it as we have a system of ethics at the company that should carry through to how we leverage AI, and we should always disclose and be clear about what we're doing with AI and why we're doing it, and we should recommend that to our partners and our clients and others, I think it sets you up for success.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you for that. And are you going to be around for people to speak with you
I will
later?
be here for a bit, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.